It's the Cardiff City bank holiday special, remember the old bank holiday specials? It was kind of like that today. We managed to win, and a bit of a kind of and the bank holidays years ago they used to be clowns and whatever, and today we had 2 own goals. So it's all good news. Amazing results. CCFC winning 2-1 away at CCFC. After that dreadful Sunderland game. On the panel tonight, we got Simon Willis, we got Steve Wiggins, and we got Dave Sugarman. So thanks all for coming in. Steve, if I can come to you first, because I just like you to. You were telling me that ordinarily there'd be other people in your house to watch Cardiff City, but there was a decision not to join you today. Tell us all about that.
Yeah, normally away games, if I'm not going to the away games, I get a house full of the lads over, and they all message and call me this morning, and I quote, "Wiggs, we're not coming over today. We can't take any more. We're off to see the county." So they went over to Newport to watch them today. So
they got battered 4-0.
They
got battered 4-0, I think, didn't they?
Did they? I haven't seen any scores. Yeah. So I was on my jacks here today, Steve, but it were pleasantly surprised. And like I just said to you, and to the guys, I can't work out how a team can go from that poor on Good Friday to pulling up a display today, which was full of fight and guts, and that's all as a fan we want to see, boys, isn't it?
So, Steve, was that, just to ask you before I go to the others, I didn't see any of it, and it's one of those things with Radio Wales. I tried to listen to City today, and they kept on playing with some Swansea match. I'm thinking, well, I don't live in West Wales, and if I was a Swansea fan, I wouldn't want to listen to Cardiff, and vice versa. But it was some sort of issue. They kept on losing it. But we went 1-0 down. I thought, oh, here we go. As soon as we go 1 down, it's over, isn't it? And I couldn't believe we equalised. Was it because we managed to get that goal back? Do you think that was what really lifted us and gave us a bit of self belief?
Well, to be honest, we started okay today, and they got their goal, which was a really well worked goal. We weren't pressing again. I'm going to mention that because I don't think Bullet enjoys pressing, but they scored a really well worked goal from the flank. I think after that goal, we just seemed to step up a gear, and the 15-20 minutes after they scored, we were really on the front foot. And okay, they still had a couple of half chances, but and it was a bit of a fortuitous goal. But saying that, I think Bowler would have scored anyway if you watch it on the highlights tonight. But it was a real decent display today of fight. People putting tackles in, which we didn't see on Good Friday, and which we didn't see at Swansea. And to be honest, Callan Grant missed a sitter through 1-on-1 with the keeper. We could have won by more in the end. And okay, we were backs against the wall. I didn't agree with his decision to pull Turnbull off and stick Wintle as a 10, because he's tried that before and that hasn't worked. And I felt as if he was pulling the shutters down a little bit there. But then he brought Ramsey and O'Dowda on the last 5-10 minutes. But we ground out 3 points. That's a place there where we haven't won for about 14 years, I think. So
yeah. Well, 2 own goals doesn't do any harm, does it?
No, exactly. And people say that I don't give enough credit when we win. I do, and hats off to Bullet today, because when I saw the starting lineup with none of the kids involved, I was a bit dismayed, to be honest, like probably the other guys were. But we got 3 points, and the playoffs are back on.
Come on now, come on. No, Calm down, son. Calm down. I'm going to come to Dave in a bit, because I'm sure Dave's got plenty to say about recent City performances. But I'll go to Simon first, because Simon's joining us tonight from Cardiff City World, and thanks Simon for coming on, particularly on a bank holiday. Now, I'm just going to say to you, Simon, I sometimes I do. I pop in for bits of it, but the other night I watched your stream after the Sunderland game. It was quite colourful, should we say, and fairly outspoken. What's your thoughts on going from that to this?
So interesting. One of the things I talked about after that game, and I did again last night in the kind of preview for this game, is I've been frustrated by the lack of sort of structure within the side. Like, we all know Wintle and Rawls can't play together. and there's certain other sort of little things which are not going to work. Steve mentioned the Wintle playing in the 10 didn't work earlier in the season, and I felt like that was a big issue with Wintle and Rolls on Friday. I thought that was a big reason of why we were so poor. Yes, we lacked fight and the rest of it, but just structurally we were just all over the place as a team. And today, I was frustrated by the lineup and certain people still retaining their places and whatnot, and not having the youth in there. But overall, I thought the structure of the side, it was like round pegs in round holes for 10 of the positions. So I think straight away you're going to get a better performance because everyone's a bit more balanced. And I thought that was a big part of it. I thought we need Rolls or Turnbull to be one of the two deeper midfielders. And he obviously did that with Rolls. Rolls and Siopis seem to play quite well together. As I've said a few times, I don't understand the refusal to play Turnbull alongside Siopis. That's where he's had his best games for Celtic. But he hasn't played there once yet as the deeper midfielder, Turnbull. And I thought, in particular today, I thought Siopis, Turnbull and Phillips all were absolutely excellent. There was a few other performances which were decent. Josh Bowler plays like one good game in 5, and I thought today was probably his one. And then that the next couple are going to be very inconsistent. I thought we looked much more solid at left back today defensively, but obviously Collins doesn't give you quite as much going forward. But then away from home, you don't necessarily need like a marauding fullback who's going to overlap and the rest of it. You need to be defensively solid. Away from home, we've been pretty solid all season. For whatever reason, I think his tactics suit it. Just quickly, I wanted to say about something else which Steve said about his refusal to press. I don't know what's happened with the pressing at Cardiff. At the start of the season, we played all the possession football that we play now. We've played it all season. But at the start of the season, out of possession, we pressed. And the whole point of having the possession and playing out from the back was to try and play through teams. And then there was movement off the ball with the wingers, the number 10, whoever. And it worked. And then as the season's gone on and we had that little dip before Christmas, everything's become quite slow in possession. The movement off the ball has been non-existent. And I think you could see against Swansea, like we let them play. We just let them walk out of defence. There was obviously a tactical thing because otherwise the manager or one of the coaches is going to say, press. Like, no, press. He could do it at any point in the game. They could change that. So it's obviously a tactical decision to not press, which I think long-term is a worry in the Championship because teams like, I don't know, Leicester, Southampton, all these different teams, they will walk through you if you don't press them. And the games where we have pressed well at the start of the season, Huddersfield away, Sunderland away, I'm trying to think of some of the others, Leeds away in the first game of the season, Ipswich, like we have pressed and been successful, but certainly since Christmas, the press has been non-existent. And that's something which I think needs to be addressed. I should be more positive because it was a good performance today. But I know that the next game we'll play with a similar sort of side, similar sort of tactics. And unfortunately, I've been pro Bullet all season, by the way. Like when everyone was saying he's not, I've said he's the man to take us forward for the next 2 or 3 years. But he's got to learn and adapt as he's going. And I don't feel like, particularly in the last month, I've seen some sort of warning signs that he isn't adapting and he isn't learning. And that's a worry for me. And maybe that's partially because the reason he's not got the young players on the bench is because he's not going to be here next year. So he doesn't care about building a partnership between Siopis and Turnbull as the midfield, or having Joel Colwell and Keane Ashford give him 20 minutes here and there for a couple of games now so they can start the last home game of the season. Or he doesn't care because he's not going to be here. So he's going to keep playing Bowler, who's not here next season. Robinson's probably not going to be here next season. Sawyer's on the bench today. He's not going to be here next season. And it makes no sense to me. But anyway, sorry, I went on a bit of a rant.
No, that's all right. Yeah, it's not like you to go on a rant. So, Dave, the lone gunman, Sugarman, what's your thoughts on things?
Well, I didn't see the game today, but all the reports were positive in terms of the fact that it was apparently a much better rounded performance in terms of effort, in terms of the actual structure of the side and the way they played. But I mean, if you just take the last 4 games as a sort of an example of the season, really good first 20 minutes or so against Ipswich. The rest of the game, Ipswich were marginally the better side, but you know, at the end of that game, we would have all come away and said, well, that was definitely an improvement on what we've seen recently. Sure, yeah. And then we managed to nick it in, you know, the last 10 minutes, which was remarkable. Then they go away to Swansea and were just plain pathetic from first whistle to last. Then you expect some sort of a reaction at home to Sunderland, and they were actually worse. And then today they go away to Coventry, and you know, albeit fortunate to get 2 own goals maybe, but overall the reports suggest that it was reasonable. Under this guy, I've got no clue where this club is going at all, where the team is, what the setup is, what the plan is long term, what the plan is short term, what his tactics are supposed to be, what his favoured setup is. I've just got no clue. I can't have him at all. It's as simple as that. I'm just, you know, today's an example, an end of season game that actually means nothing in the grand scheme of things. The youngest player on the pitch, I think, the youngest player on the city is going to be 25 in the summer. So where does that take you next season in terms of preparation for next season? But I don't know. You know, today's a victory, which has got to be a positive. But I just don't know where we go with it with this current setup at all. I've got no faith in him at all, to be honest.
Fair enough. Just wanted to ask you, Dave, before I go back to Steve. When I saw the starting lineup, I actually exchanged messages with Steve earlier today. You know, I saw the starting lineup. I'm like, has he really gone with that again? Is he really gone with that inverted wingers thing again? Is he really gone with Mate up front? You know, I mean, Mate, probably an okay championship footballer, but he's can't be a striker. I mean, he's got 1 goal all season. So I thought, I said to Steve, it's like Errol's determined to go down with the ship, you know, figuratively. This is the way I play. This is how it is. This is how we go. You know, he doesn't seem open, does he, to being more proactive about things and trying different things. Just doesn't seem to be him, does it?
Not really. But you know, the other thing is he changes the side almost every game in terms of 3 or 4 players. And you could justify it after that Sunderland debacle and after the Swansea game before it. But you know, since more substitutes became a thing, have you ever known a manager at any club, let alone ours, make so many substitutes at half time? I mean, today was one where it didn't happen for a change, but usually there's 1 change, 2 changes, even 3 changes at half time, which indicates that he didn't get the starting lineup right in the first place. But I mean, I just can't. I can't see any sort of progression in this. They're 11th in the table, which is quite astonishing. You know, they say that the table never lies. I tell you what, in my sort of however many years it is now, God knows, 40, 50 years or whatever it is, coming up for 50 years, I think. I've never seen a City side that is sort of in more of a false position. Because if this is the 11th best side in the Championship, we might as well pack up and go home now. Because you know, I don't believe this is a top half side as things stand. But nevertheless, they just keep getting these weird and wonderful, ugly.
Well, it's Cardiff City, isn't it? You know,
a goal. But I think that there's one telling stat. I put it on the message board a couple of weeks ago. But I think this is interesting, and this is an indication of where we are really. We're currently on a run of 26 league games without a victory by 2 or more goals. Okay, now the side's last win by a 2-goal margin was back in October when they beat Bristol City 2-0. Currently, there are only 2 teams in the top 5 divisions, so down as far as the National League, who are on longer runs than us of not winning by 2 goals or more, and that's Birmingham, who are on a run of 29, and Rotherham, who are on a run of 28. Every other club in every other division has won by 2 or more goals. Sutton United were on a similar run until recently, and they've won by 2 clear goals, and I think they won 3-0 today recently. Carlisle were bottom of the League One, and they won 3-1 in midweek.
Okay.
And during that period, City have been beaten by 2 clear goals on 10 separate occasions, or 2 or more. So, to me, this is just not sustainable the way things are going forward, and it just seems like treading water, completely treading water, not trying anything progressive, not trying anything that's going to actually work out long term. It's just like scrape a result here, scrape a result there, and
okay. So you're good with those stats, so Dave. I like your stats. It's something though, isn't it, Steve? When we're being outdone by Sutton, Sutton United have put one over on us. Things aren't great. The Josh Bowler moments today, right? Because there's a comment here from GD Parry, which is a great name. Thanks for that. Anyway, poor old Bowler plays his best in months, and then they credit both to Kitching. So I haven't seen either goal, Steve. I didn't see any of the action. I couldn't get to it at all today, right? So tell me about those goals. I'm guessing he obviously cut in from the right, turned onto his left, and were they great strikes at goal? Was it very?
No, the first goal was a corner, Steve. Nice corner from Turnbull, and that's one thing I will say about him. He's very good at dead balls. I think it was Phillips that knocked the ball down. There's a bit of a scramble in the box. His bowler was about 3 yards out. Kitchen was pulling the hell out of his shirt, and he just took a swipe at it and put the ball in the roof of the net. So that was the first one. And then the second one, nice move, nice bit of passing through the midfield. Bowler gets the ball right-hand side. Takes the fullback on his right side, which is a rarity. Normally he's coming inside, and he tried to wang across him with his right foot, and it hit Kitchen's head, and it flew in the top corner again.
He was so surprised. He never thought he'd see him using his right foot.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's a rarity, isn't it? I was amazed because
I didn't know he had
and that's been one of my big beefs with Bullet. He keeps playing, a left-footed player on the right-hand side, this inverted winger business. But he did have a good game today, Bowler. Actually, he looked, as Simon said, he actually looked lively today. As a player, I always liked Bowler. When he was with Blackpool, I think I mentioned before when I've been on, I think he's a good player, but I don't think this business of playing inverted wingers, I don't get it. And I think, to pick up what Dave said, Bullet's a very stubborn man. And I don't think he's learned either. Personally, I don't think he's the man to take us forward either. Even though we're like Dave just said there, we're grinding out these silly results. Another one that springs to mind was Sunderland away. How the hell did we win that game? And there's another one there today. We played Bella today, and I will tip my hat there. But I mean, the abject performances. The Sunderland game was one of the worst games of football. I've been going down there about 55 years now, and that was one of the worst games of football. And people always bring up more when we were in the 4th division and 3rd division. That was one of the worst games of football I've ever seen. There was just nothing. And this idea about playing out from the back, we saw against Sunderland. We were giving the ball away. And then we don't press, and it's a recipe, as Simon said, for disaster. I think if you're going to play out from the back, then you've certainly got to press from your front players. And from what I saw again today, even though we won that game, Bullet's content just to let any side come into our half, 10 yards, and just let them play. And as Simon said earlier, if you do that to the top sides, they'll tear you to pieces. So it's a big worry. And personally, I don't think Errol's the right man to take us forward. I worry, why are we worrying more about points than blooding our youngsters? People like Joel Colwell and Ashford should be in that team today. I mean, we're not going to go down. We're not going to go up. So let's have a look at them. Let's see what they're. I mean, they've been on the bench a couple of times as a token gesture, but they never get game time. You know, and as the boys have said, a lot of those loan players are going back the end of the season. We're back to square one because the youngsters haven't had game time, which is crazy.
Yeah. So, Si, coming back to you, you know, it's interesting, isn't it? The Errol Bullet one. It's an interesting one. It kind of spins around. You know, we're still. I mean, here's my gut feeling is I'm probably totally wrong as usual. My gut feeling is he's already a goner. I think because I think by now it probably would have been some sort of announcement. And Steve's point there about, you know, was 16 points clear of the drop. I think it means Huddersfield will win the last 6 games. It ain't going to happen. So we're already secure. So I just think, you know, now a case is a little bit like the girlfriend scenario, which I remember from when I was a kid years and years and years ago, you know, vaguely that, you know, you probably at that time you wouldn't sort of, you know, get rid of your girlfriend unless you had another one lined up, sort of thing. So it's a bit of that. But well, how are your thoughts on Errol? Apologies to anyone who's ever known me in my life, by the way. So in terms of your thoughts towards Errol Bullet, how are they now? Because you say you've been quite supportive up to this point.
So there's 2 sides to it with Bullet. I think there's one side where you've got to say, has he got enough credit in the bank from the first half of the season where you can say, right, he's done enough with sort of fit players and a fit squad and, you know, everyone's fresh, that you've seen enough positives in that first half of the season that if you can give him a few players, more importantly, get a few players out, because there is, in my opinion, and I will say in my opinion so people don't get upset, there's a couple of bad eggs in that squad which are causing issues within the morale and they're either not on board with the manager or they don't
on your opinion side, because you mentioned that the other night in your stream.
How can I word this? So as reported in the various newspapers in the first half of the season, Robinson has fallen out with the manager a number of times. It's my understanding that he's not the only one. And look, that happens. Especially at football clubs, but it happens at all workplaces. If people, you know, they can be a bit of back and forth conversation, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It becomes a bad thing if the person who's not playing, for instance, is kind of moaning to his mate in the squad, and then it can spread really, really quickly. We talk about it a lot on the Rodri Gig show, like one sort of, and they might not even do it intentionally. It can just be they're complaining about the manager or the tactics or the, you know, not playing. And then it can very quickly spread. And once you lose that dressing room, that's an issue. But anyway, I think regardless, there's players within that squad which need to be moved on, either because they're not good enough, they don't fit into the way the club or the manager want to play going forward. There's a few players which need to be moved on. And I think that is just as important as getting the right players in. I also think it would be fair to say that he didn't get the players that he wanted in January. And he kind of, I would say at least a couple of them were given to him rather than him, you know, like being 3rd or 4th on his list of players. I think there was at least a couple which were probably selected by the club at the last minute so that he had someone.
Well, I mean, the most obvious one for that, surely, you know, although I think he is a really good player, better players around him, is Turnbull, you know, because he came out of nowhere at the last moment, and he isn't a striker.
Well, I think the thing with Turnbull, which is incredibly frustrating for me, is he's a very good footballer. He's very good technically on the ball. And when I heard that we'd signed Turnbull, I was so excited because I thought, right, we're going to see Turnbull and Siopis, and then we're going to have Colwell or Ramsey in the 10. And that is going to be a really good midfield because Siopis and Turnbull, they complement each other. But there was a point where I felt like Siopis was trying to do 2 roles almost. He was trying to be the holding midfielder, but he was also trying to progress the ball up the field and be the passer, which he's not probably got the skill set to do. Because Joe Ralls was out and Ryan Wintle is Ryan Wintle. He's got some good capabilities, but he hasn't necessarily got the capabilities to do other things. And then we haven't seen Turnbull once play alongside Siopis, which has been a personal bugbear. But back on the Bullet thing. So there's that one side of it where you say, right, does he got enough in the bank? Were the performances good enough when they were good? And do you think if you can give him his type of squad, will he be able to take the club forward over 2 or 3 series and actually two or three seasons and actually build? Or have there been enough red flags in the bad parts that you think, right, okay, maybe he's not the guy? I understand people's frustration with the possession football. Possession football can be really, really effective, especially in the Championship where pretty much every team presses, but you've got to have the players capable of doing it. And I think, McGuinness is capable of it. Phillips is capable of it. I would question whether Gutas is capable of kind of playing when two strikers are sort of pressing him. But, there's also nothing wrong with being a bit more direct when you're under pressure and going over the press. It doesn't have to be just a long ball, lumped to anywhere. It's having a plan B and being able to adapt. For me personally, I've gone from, yes, I think he's the right man. If you give him time and you be patient, I'm more around the 50-50 place now. And the one thing, as I said earlier, which is really kind of pushed me in that direction is I don't think he's learning. Steve said it earlier. I think he's very stubborn. And I think I think a title of one of my reviews, probably just after Christmas, I think it was something along the lines of Ryan Wintle and who else was it? I think it was Atete and Wintle will end up costing him his job because he refuses to drop them no matter how badly they play. And I know Wintle didn't start today, but I mean, there's certain players, and Bowler as well, like there's certain players which he seems to pick no matter what and no matter how bad their performances are. But then Ruben Colwell is off at the first opportunity when he's starting to get a bit of quality. There's been periods where he's had 3 or 4 good games and then he's rotated, and you're thinking, why do you know what you're doing? But it's a long answer to your question, is mate. I'm less pro Bullet than I was before.
Okay.
I'm not sure if I'm quite, he's not the right man. I'm not as confident as Steve to say he's not the right man going forward. But
I'm pretty sure Dave's got slightly more the other side of the fence on that one.
Yeah.
What's your take, Dave?
Yeah, I said I've seen nothing from him. Even in the early stages when they played some decent football in a couple of the away games in particular. Because a couple of those home performances were poor. Let's not forget that seems to get brushed over.
Home form's been rubbish all season, hasn't it?
That's right. Yeah. I mean, they were really poor against QPR. They were very, very fortunate to get a victory against Sheffield Wednesday. Thanks to Will Volks having one of his customary head fits.
Yeah.
And the fact is that a large percentage of the home games are. But from my perspective, when you've got a team that is mid-table in the Championship, which I believed at the start of the season this would be a mid-table side. I didn't think it was going to be a side that was going to challenge for the playoffs at all at any stage. So, but I always thought it was be mid-table. But what you wanted to see, or what I wanted to see, was some entertaining football and some signs of progression that you can build upon next season going forward in terms of the way the manager wants to set up the sort of philosophy the manager has, whatever. And I'm just not sure that Bullet's philosophy is anything other than trying to stop the opposition.
So seeing what's on the screen there, Dave, if you can see from Andrew Wickham, it's hard to trust Tan and the board. They need to back the manager to progress. It leads us into a kind of a wider conversation. But is that a fair point that it's then down to Tan and the board to make it happen?
Yeah, I mean, a really. This is going to sound stupid to a lot of people, I know, but I genuinely don't believe that there are many other managers of a similar standing that would have got the team into 11th position in the table. But I think it's happened more by luck than judgment. I really do. And I just don't see I would have been equally well. I would have been far happier. Let's put it that way. If the team was 14th or 15th, but playing good football and winning the occasional game 2 or 3-0 and looking like there was some attacking intent. These players that we've got, the likes of Grant, the likes of Mate, the likes of Bowler, they've all scored goals at this level. They've scored, they've all been a part of attacking sides that have scored plenty of goals. It just doesn't happen with this fella. It's just so negative, and it's so sterile, the football. And I just can't see that next season, if he was given license to bring in 5 or 6 new players, I just can't see it being any different.
Okay. I mean, that was the thing today when I saw the starting lineup, just responding to Dave as I go across to Steve. When I saw the starting lineup, I mean, maybe other clubs do it. Maybe it works. Maybe you could argue it worked today. Playing the inverted wingers, we won the match because we caused the problems. Maybe it worked, but when I saw the starting front three, I would have started down the left.
Yeah.
Jeju for some reason wasn't in the squad. I'm guessing it was an injury, but if he was fit, I probably would have put him in there. And I would play Grant down the right, and then you got a left footer and a right footer. Getting the ball into the box and causing problems. Because I just think who's going to score the goals. And then, as I said earlier, I couldn't see the game today, and I could barely hear it for one reason or another. But every time I did, we'd scored, and it was every time. Oh my God, I can't believe we scored another own goal. Relying on them. But he was nearly on a hat trick. The lad, wasn't he?
We made some good chances today, Steve. I just quick, one word that Dave used there, and it's a word that I've used quite frequently, is entertainment or entertain. And, I was up with Wayne in the box on Friday, and the number of people that walked out of the ground when Sunderland went 2-0 up in the Canton end was unreal. And a lot of my friends, talking to them after the game, they left on 60 minutes. I think if Mr. Bullet is in charge next year and he carries on with those tactics, a lot of my friends are seasons. They've been down season ticket holders there for years. They're wobbling about renewing their season tickets already, and they're people who've been going 30, 40 years as a season ticket holder. That's the worry from a financial aspect, because I think ultimately football these days is a lot of money. We're not paying 3 or 4 quid to stand on the Bob Bank anymore. It's costing a lot of money. People travel, that costs money. When you get to the ground, that costs money. So if we haven't got the volume of people in the ground, if spectators start voting with their feet, which I think they have done already, a lot of people around us don't even come to the game anymore, and they're season ticket holders because they're bored stiff with the fare. It's an entertainment business, football, and I think there's a duty of a manager certainly to set this team up tactically to entertain, and I'm not seeing that at home, like Dave said. It's been incredibly poor. I think Bullet's more worried about
not losing. What? I was going to say, sorry, just to say, just because of Mr. Blue Page, you put the comment on there. I wondered if you wanted to respond to that.
Yeah, and listen, I get that. Yes, he had a remit probably to keep the team, afloat, and he's done that. As Dave just said there, is it by more luck than judgment? The points are on the board, but I'm not convinced in the manner that we've got those victories. And again today, we played better today, yes, but the goals went in off someone's backside, and the defender put the ball in his own net. Carl and Grant should have scored, yes, and we looked a lot better. But I still don't like the way he sets the team up. Again, we had 2 defensive midfielders in there. Played Turnbull a bit further forward again, as he did against Swansea, but he seems to be. It reminds me, and I said this to a few of our lads. It reminds me of the old Italian football from the 80s, which I never used to watch on Channel 4 because I found it sterile and boring. And I think that's the style that Bullet's setting his team up with. I'd love to see what they do in training. Today aside, as soon as they get close to the halfway line, fear seems to set in, and they don't know what to do with the ball. And just to quickly touch on what the boys were saying about players falling out with the management, do we all think, or I personally do, that it's down to the tactics? Because if you've got progressive players who like to play on the front foot, like your Robinsons, like your Caldwells, like your like Bowler, are they being stifled by this fear of, you've got to track back and you've got to put a foot in. Look at someone like Glenn Hoddle, Steve. He was the one. I mean, Spurs didn't tell him to track back. He was there just to spray the balls round. And I think Colwell especially has been given a very raw deal.
Yeah, I mean, again, Si, I'll let you respond to the comment on the screen as well, because it's kind of a relevant one. Because it basically, if that was the objective at the start of the season, then he's a successful manager. But Colwell, again, the other one, wasn't in the squad today. And again, I'm guessing it was an injury. But what about that? Errol Bullitt kind of had the agenda, keep us in the league, nice and safe, well away from the drop. Mid-table plus.
So, the one thing I would say, right, is, we haven't played good football for a long time, and this manager clearly plays like a possession-based football before. He wants to have the ball a lot, and I understand what everyone's frustration with it, and I understand all the points that the boys have made. I actually agree with probably 90% of them, but I also think it takes time to change what the squad is used to, what we've been doing previously. It also takes time to get your players in, the players who aren't going to be capable for whatever reason of playing the way you want to play. It's very difficult to do that in 12 months, especially when you've got 3 or 4 loan players, maybe 3 or 4 players who you're probably going to move on for one reason or another. So it takes time. So if you're just going to, and I just mean generally as a club, if we're just going to shift the managers every 12 months, 18 months, because they haven't straight away got a reaction or they straight away haven't changed things, I just think it's going to be like a revolving door thing. And yes, some might work, some won't. One of the interesting things, I was looking at Bullett's previous record, and previously he's quite often favoured like a 3-5-2, for instance. But you've got to play with what a lot of managers, and I think he's been guilty of this a lot this year, is as a manager, and it's my belief that you should look at the squad you've got and then come up with tactics that suit those players, not come in and go, this is the way I manage, this is the way I play, this is the way we're going to play. Do it, because you could have 20 players who don't suit those tactics or that system. And I think there's a mix at the moment of players that suit like a possession-based game, but there's also other players who are a bit more direct or a bit more creative, who maybe suit like a more counter-attacking game or different styles. I actually think that a 3-5-2 is probably suited to a lot of the players that we've currently got in our squad, like a Wilson Esperand and an O'Dowda and people like this. Like, they're probably more suited to a 3-5-2, and I think you could still be defensively solid, but maybe create a bit. The biggest problem is we haven't got a striker. We still don't have a goal scorer. We haven't got a striker at the club, which makes you wonder, why is Keane Ashford not in the squad again?
Well, we didn't have a striker on the bench today, did we? Because JG was missing and the Tete's out. We just literally did not have a striker, unless you say Robinson is the striker. We didn't have one on the
bench. Where's the Tete gone, Steve? Where's he gone?
He's injured. He is.
He's injured at the moment. Yeah. Sorry, Dave. Just to bring you in on that one. Somebody just made a good comment, actually. Well, obviously, Paul Williams, very lucky win. Our forwards were awful, but the result keeps Bullitt in a job. I mean, the thing is, we won. We have to remember we did win a match. We went away to Coventry, just outside the playoffs. We won. So. The
thing is, from the perspective of building with a manager and all that. Not maybe the last time I was on the show, at the start of the season, I said, look, whatever happens, you've got to give this guy a year minimum. But in my view, at that time, it was 2 years. You've got to give him a chance to build a squad and build a team going forward. But I'm going to hold my hands up now and say that I was just wrong on that score with this guy, because as time has gone on, I've seen nothing to suggest that there's going to be any progress going forward. Nothing at all. The football is just absolutely terrible. And you're not going to get anywhere in this division playing that sort of football week in, week out, and pinching the odd victory here and there through set pieces and what have you. But another thing with Bullitt, you look at his record, you're talking about building with a manager going forward. His previous clubs, I've got it up on the screen now in front of me. His first job was at Metallia Sport, where he was there for 2 years. Then he was at Alanyaspor for a year. Then he was at Fenerbahce for 8 months. Then he was at, I can't even pronounce this one, Gazi here for a year and a half.
Do you want another go at that?
No. So it's not as if he's a manager that's ever stuck around anywhere anyway previously. And I just
don't, Turkish journeyman.
The fact that he was sent packing by Fenerbahce after 8 months while they were third in the table was interesting, because they were effectively expected to finish third in the table that season, from what I understand reading about it. Apparently, despite the fact that this was a period he was manager of Fenerbahce during the period that fans weren't allowed in the grounds, but nevertheless the fans were unhappy with his negative football, and so he was given the boot after 8 months. As I say, I honestly wish that I'd sort of my convictions early in the season that realistically he had to be given a minimum of a year, but realistically 2 years when I was last on the show. I wish I could stand by that now and say that that's the way I should. But I'm just seeing nothing to suggest there's any sort of progress likely under this guy. That's the problem. It looks. My view is that if we retain his services, next season will be more of the same, and I'll be bored senseless and just stop going.
Yes. So the thing is, Dave, right? There's a couple of things to mention. Firstly, we got a great one from Ian Stewart, who always chips in the nice YOY. So I'll go to Steve with a YOY in a second. But if we're bored as hell watching it, and it's like watching paint dry, I think it's relevant, Dave. Just briefly, I think it's relevant to put that into the kind of the mindset of the players who, they don't play football. I mean, they're professional footballers; they get well paid for it. But you'd like to think they're playing football because their career is fairly short, and they want to enjoy that career. I wonder how they feel about being asked to be so kind of safe and negative all the time.
But it's an important, the entertainment thing that Steve touched on earlier. It's an important factor. If you're going to be a mid-table championship side, which we are at the moment, and we're likely to be for a couple more years, I would have thought, unless we get a change of ownership or something dramatic happens, entertainment is going to be important, because you're going to want to keep people on side and keep them coming back. Now, where I sit in the centre of the Ninian stand, they're great seats. They're all season ticket holders everywhere around us. There are rows of empty seats at the moment during games. We come from our local pub in Rubina. We come in on a minibus 16-seater. On Friday there were 4 spare seats. And usually we have no trouble filling them, but we just couldn't get anybody to go. We had free tickets we couldn't give away. And I mean that's going to be the situation going forward if this sort of sterile, tedious, boring football continues.
So coming off the back of that, I go to the YOY from Ian Stewart. This is for you, Steve. Yeah, YOY. Have we gotten to 6 games from the end of the season, but not one of our players scoring twice in a league game? Yet we had an opposition player score 2 own goals for us today. That must surely say a lot on how poor this season has been. And then he says at the end, own goals for us must now be up around 5 or 6, if not more. I don't know whether Side's checked this yet, but I'll just say to
the top
fans,
scorers.
I think they are our top scorers. Yeah. So do you want to report? And also Sunderland lost 5-1 at home today as well.
Yeah.
I thought there was a great line on the message board earlier. Somebody said our top scorers are now NG and OG.
Brilliant. Yeah. Well, the short answer there, Steve, is we don't create enough, and the reason for that is due to the manager's tactics. And I just quickly go back to the Sunderland game. Even when we're 2 down, we're still playing balls across our 18-yard box. Our players, like Simon said earlier, some of our players are not comfortable playing out from the back. So you'd think that now and again I watch Spurs. Spurs are experts at knocking the ball around. Even they get caught. Brighton got caught yesterday against Liverpool. Even the top sides are getting caught playing out from the back. So you'd think whoever's decided that's the way to play. Like I've been craving Neil Warnock just to put a few long ones in the channel and just chase the ball. you know, and just to get the ball in the opposition half to create chances. And the why then, to answer the question, is we just don't create enough, and we don't look like creating enough from open play. I mean, again, one of the goals came from a corner today. The second goal was a better move, playing through the midfield. But most of our goals and opportunities this year have come from corners or free kicks, haven't they? And the reason for that is we're not getting the ball into dangerous areas. And when we get in the opposition half, the players are looking back and sideways all the time, as opposed to getting on the front foot and playing the ball forward. That's the reason why we're not scoring goals.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, because if you think about the lineup today, I actually, you know, maybe I'm not convincing other people too much with this. I quite like, if you're going to have two holding midfielders, I quite like Joe Rawls being one of them, because it gives us a left foot, right foot kind of balance. But then if those players are there to be defensive, and you know, they play it forward to whoever's playing the number 10, which would be a choice of Colwell, Turnbull, Robinson, or Ramsey, actually. You know, and then where's that ball going to go then? Because if you're going to check it up to an inverted winger, you know,
coming in again,
it's counterintuitive, isn't it?
It's like we said before, Steve. We're crying out for the older viewers. We're crying out for Willie Anderson, Barry Jones, or John Farrington on the right to get on the outside of their fullbacks, cross the ball over for a centre forward. I'm there and I had the ball in. That's the game. I mean, the name of the game, even the Premier teams, is getting to the byline, getting behind defences. And sometimes our midfield players don't even push on in front of our attack, and that's why we don't create chances. You've got to give players like Colwell a bit of a license to do that, and take the fear out of coming back and putting the foot in. Let him stay as a 10 and try and spread the balls around, get behind the defences like he did against the game against Ipswich, him and Carlin Grant on the right-hand side. You've got to give players a license to do that.
So
and
much
the manager...
better. We look so much better.
The coaches, yeah, of course he was, yeah. And like you said earlier, Carlin Grant, he stubbornly played him on the left-hand side right throughout the season. The boy's a right-footed player, so why not just try him over there? Even when we have Berkey and Noon playing with Jones, I mean, at least they switched throughout the game. They'd switch the wingers round to give it a bit of variety. We don't do that. So as an opposition manager, you sort of know what kind of City how they're gonna set up and how they're gonna play, don't you?
Yeah, and a comment there from Steve Thomas. From Steve Thomas, he just back from Coventry, because he lives in Nottingham, I think. Sorry to have missed the first part of the show. Deserve to win today. Chalk and cheese from Saturday, and if Errol can motivate him like today, let's back him. So there's someone else pro bullet for you, Si.
Look, at the end of the day, for me, it's the players have got to take some responsibility for motivating yourself. Like the players, the coaching staff, the managers, the football club as a whole, going into that Sunderland game, they owed the fans a performance after the absolute disgrace that was the derby. And what they did is they put in a worse performance. Now, yes, you can say this, that, and the other about the manager, the tactics, the team selection. But at the end of the day, the players who are on the pitch can put effort in and can run about a bit and put a tackle in. Like, I'm pretty sure the manager's not telling them to stand around and do their hair and watch as runners go past them or whatever else. Like, they shouldn't need to be motivated by the manager, is my point, I guess. Like, you should be able to get yourself up for a game of football for your football club, even if you're a lone player. So I don't necessarily, agree that that's of course, the manager should get him up for it, and tactically he should be prepared and all that sort of stuff. But effort and motivation should just come from the individual for me. So, go on, Steve.
Sorry, so I just want to go round over this because we've gone into the last sort of 10 minutes. So I'll start with you, right? So I think we're going into our 125th season, which is quite an important season. I think the season tickets are going on sale towards the end of this week, if I'm right, something like that. You know, it's a special season. We're talking about which kit I'm sure we'd all know which kit we'd like. You know, the stripes down the side probably is the one we'd all probably like to see. But how can, you know, how would you feel? You know, how do you think season ticket holders will feel actually about being asked to shell out for the 125th season of Cardiff City, thinking we don't even know who the manager's going to be, We're not playing great football. It's pretty miserable watch. Not quite sure.
I think there's a big chunk of season ticket holders who are already frustrated, and I think it's not just the manager and the tactics. I think there's a big chunk of the fan base which feel like the board as a whole have dropped the ball on several issues over the last few years, at least being kind. And I think that frustration is already there. Like as an undercurrent, there's a frustration with the board. And I think that combined with the tactics and the kind of the style of football, some of the performances in the derbies and things like this, it's like there's just negativity in the background all the time. And then when you put in a couple of performances like the Swansea Sunderland game, it all comes to a head. And then if you ask people, like you start sending out season ticket things around the same time as when that negativity is about, it's undoubtedly going to be difficult to do, which is why they should be doing what I said at the start of the show, Steve, is they should be starting Tanner on the right for the next 6 games. They should be playing Joel Colwell and Ashford for 15 minutes at the end of the next 3 or 4 games, and probably starting them in the last 2 home games, because the results don't really matter now. So give the fans something to be excited about. And like I could tell you, Joel Colwell is so highly rated, not just by the people at Cardiff, but by the under 23 or the academy system, whatever you want to call it, as a whole in the Championship. He's one of the most highly rated players in the system. So let's see if he's ready now. So if we give him a few, 20 minutes here, 20 minutes there, and then start at the end of a year, at least we know, actually, he might need a loan, say. So maybe he needs to go on loan next year for 6 months.
Yeah, I think I probably would do in the world of good, actually.
But we won't know, will we? Because we can't play him in the Championship when it's a must-win.
No. Dave, so we've got half a dozen games to go, coming off the back of what Simon said then about, trying to excite fans and giving them something to feel part of and be passionate about. It's a big decision making a season ticket purchase, isn't it? We're in a financial crisis and everything else.
But it's also something to be interested in, as well as entertaining. Just actually interested, you know. And as it stands, the home games are just the same old. You're just looking at degrees of grim performances rather than anything else. The situation is, I think the clubs, the season tickets have gone up this season, not by a huge amount, but there is a raise. It's about 10% across the board, I think. But they're still reasonably priced if you look at the cost of pretty much everything else in life these days. So the club's doing it right on that front. But the situation is that I'm just judging it from my own experience within the ground. There are so many empty seats around us on a regular basis now.
Yeah.
And the family stand looks deserted most of the time. As I said, we're getting to the stage where we can't even give tickets away in the pub for some of these games. So something desperately needs to change, because I think there's going to be a drop in season tickets this season, whatever happens. It's just a case of how significant that drop is. And I think they've got a few games to try and rescue a bit more interest from the floating fans at the moment. And bear in mind, when I say floating fans, that includes a lot of season ticket holders.
Yeah, it does.
Who buy season tickets because they're reasonably priced, but will cherry pick the games they go to.
Well, the Sunderland game is a good example, Steve. It was just a horrible day altogether. The whole thing was miserable, wasn't it?
It's a bit of a worry as well with the kids, Steve, because they're the future of Cardiff City. And you imagine, I got 2 boys, and I've tried, but I can just imagine my 2 boys sat there. They want to go. They want to be excited. They want goal. The kids want goals. The kids want something to get out their seats and sing along to. And it's not being served. The entertainment is not there. So that's a big worry. And I mean, if you're looking at it from as a fan, we need to know really who's going to be in charge as a manager next season, because if they make the decision and Bullett's going to be in charge, I think you will see quite a drastic tail off in sales. I think you'll see that if a new manager comes in. And just on the question of Bullett, if they keep Bullett, can we honestly say that Tan's going to give Bullett the money that he wants to bring in his own men? I can't see it. I mean, you know what Tan's like with cash. Are we going to just have another, we're clear out of the current loanees, another loan coming in? And, people keep saying, oh, you've got to give Bullet another season so he can bring his own men in. He's got to be given the money to do that, the finance. And can we honestly see Vincent doing that? I don't think so. So but as a fan, like I said, we need to know before we renew who's going to be at the helm next year. Well, what sort of football are we going to see next year? Are we going to see homegrown young players in the team? Because we all know, Steve, if we've got our own on the pitch, we're going to give them a little bit of leeway. But I tell you what, they'll put the effort in when we're playing in a derby because they're homegrown. So give them a turn, give them a chance, like Simon said. That's what we want to see. We want to see the youngsters in.
I thought there was a key indicator of what we're talking about in terms of the entertainment, in terms of how we're going in the game on Friday. In that, I think that is the lad who sits in front of me, Pete, just turned around and said to me before there is going to be audible booing at halftime. He said, and there was. Before that, before the halftime whistle, and there was at various intervals during the second half. Now you're talking about a team that has been pretty poor for the last couple of seasons, fighting against relegation. But I haven't heard a crowd react in a game when the defeats were racking up as they did on Friday. So I think that's an indicator that they really need to think about in the next few games, basically.
Yeah. Okay. So we better whiz around a bit on the Hull match. Yeah, and there's lots of comments coming in from people saying how they're going to be renewing the season, and also whether we're being over negative on the day, and we actually won. So that's fair enough. Great word from Nigel Harris, which I'll go, Dave, just for your benefit, you'll like this one.
No.
The way they go, he's got a chance. So
I won't bother putting that into the panel. Steve, looking ahead to the whole game, Hull, I suppose, are like the Coventry kind of level. They've been around the playoffs. There or thereabouts. More on it for them than us. What do you think? What kind of performance can you predict? Because it's almost totally unpredictable with Cardiff City, and is it again a chance now? 16 points clear, 6 games to go. Is it now a good time to do what you said earlier, put a couple of youngsters on the bench?
Yes, it is, Steve, and it's all down to the manager and what the starting 11. Like Dave said earlier, yanking players off at half-time indicates that he's hands up, I picked the wrong team. So pick the right team. Let's get on the front foot and get in their faces. Hull City are a good team. They got a really good young manager, and I wouldn't be surprised if they beat us. But it all depends on the Cardiff City that turn up. If we get on the front foot, play like we did the last 10, 15 minutes against Ipswich, we can beat them. But will the manager set the team up to just grind out a 1-0 or a 0-0? That's the dilemma. Okay,
and Reese David Evans, I get that, Reese, what you're saying. First time viewing tonight, cannot believe how negative and depressing this has been. A win isn't good enough. 11th in the league isn't good enough. Everything's bad. Winning is bad. Mid-table is bad. It's a bit bigger and kind of wider than that, really. And it's not maybe it's not as negative as it might appear. We love winning. We're all Cardiff City fans. We've won a match. Great. We're going to end up mid-table. We're going to be safe. We're nowhere near relegation. That's all good news. But we need to kick on, and we need to give the fans something to support and get excited about. I think moving forward, because Cardiff City's got so much to offer. Is my take on that. Si, looking ahead to the Hull match, any thoughts on that one?
Yeah. So just to finish on a positive, I wanted to say I thought Siopis, Turnbull, Jamali Collins, Phillips were all pretty much flawless today. Maybe bar one or two things. I also think Siopis is the best defensive midfielder in the league. I just think he needs someone with him who can do the job. Look, at the end of the day, as I mentioned earlier, for the home games particularly, I want to see Cardiff, like the manager, I said this about a month or two ago, the manager can set a tone with the crowd before the game even kicks off by the team he names. Because if it's the kind of Wintle and Rules or Wintle in midfield and Bowler on the right, and everyone just sort of goes, oh, same thing again. Whereas if he puts Tanner on the right, like, let's see if Tanner, if he gets 5-6 starts now for the rest of the season, so he knows he's going to get at least an hour. Let's see if he's up to it. Let's see if he can get a bit of form like Colwell got when he got a few games in a row instead of 5 minutes every 3 games. Like, let's see if Tanner's up to it. And if he's not, let's loan him out next year and get someone who is up to it. But we won't know until he plays. And the same thing I've said before, I want to see Turnbull and Siopis together. I just want to see us play an attacking side. You know, O'Dowd on the left. And I think we could beat anyone on our day at home, but we haven't had those days at home this year.
Well, Ipswich was the recent exception. So again, I come back to Rhys David Evans, and I'll put it to you, Dave, because I think you'll probably sum it up quite well. You know, we're overrunning slightly. It's a bank holiday. You know, we should all be sitting around eating eggs and everything. But there you go. Rhys David Evans. Thanks, Rhys. And I'll put it to you, Dave, because maybe you can explain it from your point of view as a long-term City fan. If we went out attack, and we lost 5-0, us 3 tonight, we'd all be up in arms, saying why weren't we more defensively solid? So it's like we've won a game, we're mid-table, we're doing okay, we're not in any danger. Why can't we be more positive about stuff? And that kind of point.
Well, we can be positive if we want to, but all you can ever do on any of these shows, any of the message boards, any Facebook, any social media, you can only judge what you see with your own eyes. And I'm bored senseless watching this guy's football. You know, having watched this club for 50 years coming up this year, I just can't see that this is in any way progressive. And you can't see how this is going to develop over time. You know, when Dave Jones had to cobble together a team when he came in, there was the team had a weak underbelly in his first season because he literally had to cobble together a team from scratch, basically. But you could see that there was a plan behind the type of football he wanted to play and the way it was panning out. And sure enough, we got entertaining football for a few years, although there was always a soft underbelly to the side there. But there was progression. With Malky Mackay, his first season was progressive in terms of where it was building it from. Then we've had several seasons of just dire stuff. This guy's come in, and the football's actually more dire now, from my perspective, than it's been in the last couple of years. It's absolutely terrible to watch, and I just can't see. 11th in the table is wonderful if you actually get to 11th in the table playing some reasonable football. If you don't, then it means nothing at all, because 11th in the table might as well be 17th or anything else, because you're not going to progress with this sort of football. That's my view. Turning to the Hull game, by the way, I'm desperately hoping they get a result at Leeds tonight, because if they don't, they come here with not having won in 6, and that's got disaster written all over it.
Yeah, it would be lovely to follow up on a win today and just turn in another kind of Ipswich type performance, because against Ipswich, like you said earlier, Dave, just to summarise really, we played pretty well all match. And if we'd lost that match by the odd goal, fair enough, we would have taken it on the chin, because we just turned in a really good performance, and there haven't been enough of those, certainly at home this season. I'm only here on a bank holiday talking about Cardiff City because we all love Cardiff City. We're not here for any other reason. Hopefully we can build and move forward. And it's great that we got security in the Championship. Anyway, thank you all very much for spending some time on the show tonight. May you have a fabulous rest of your bank holiday evening, and we'll speak again soon. Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Bye-bye. Happy Easter.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
All the best, guys.